Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Inside Lowell Daily Pulse, the Monday, June 30th edition of the Daily Pulse. I'm your host, Teddy Panos, coming here from the WellPoint Studios here in beautiful, historic downtown Lowell, where we're wrapping up the month of June, wrapping up the first half of 2025. Holy smokes. Where did the year already go? Well, when you're having fun every day like we do here at Inside Lowell on the Daily Pulse, time flies. And we're excited today because we're joined in the WellPoint Studios by our special guest today, none other than the former elections director for the city of Lowell, Secretary of State, do it all
kinds of weird things.
For Bill Galvin and Beacon Hill, Congressional Chief of Staff for Chet Atkins back in the day. We got you last time you were here to admit to at least you had a CIA meeting.
Yep, but Bob Crane was the best guy I worked for the Treasury.
Bob Crane.
God rest his soul. He was great. He came to Lowell whenever I asked him. He came to the Olympia, came back. Whenever I asked him, he would come to Lowell.
All right.
He was great.
We're fans of Bob Crane as well. Greg Pappas is here.
Good morning.
In the studios. How are you, Greg?
Good. How are you?
I'm going to tell you, I've never been better.
There you go.
I left here Friday and just saw the Supreme Court rulings. I read the news headlines over the weekend between the decimation of Iran, the continued decimation of Iran, the what now appears to be almost certain the passing of the big, beautiful bill. And life has never been better for me.
You see all the U.S. senators not running again, too? It's like 6 of them. Republicans that aren't running again.
I did notice Donald Trump put something out Sunday morning about we need to primary Tom Tillis. I'm interested in meeting with candidates. And, within an hour, Tillis announced I'm not running for re-election.
Yeah, 2 more after that.
He knew he was done.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, they can't do the right thing for some reason. It's just horrible. I don't get it,
Well, eventually they will fall. But we're going to talk about all of that with Greg Pappas. We got a lot to talk about here. A legendary week for the President of the United States. A tough week for those of you who don't like the President of the United States. First, let me just thank all of our Inside Pulse sponsors. Well, we'll start with our Daily Pulse sponsors. I forget his name. Ray Booten. How can I forget Ray Booten's name? I almost said Greg Pappas, licensed realtor in Massachusetts and New Hampshire. It's actually Ray Booten, who's the licensed realtor in Massachusetts and New Hampshire and the certified appraiser in both states as well. So if you're looking to buy or sell a home, a business, or a commercial property, you need to get in touch with Ray Booten. And you can find him online, realestaterayBooten.com. That's realestaterayBooten.com. Thanks as well to our friends at WellPoint. At WellPoint, your whole health is their whole point. They're the only health plan offering healthcare benefits exclusively to GIC members. At WellPoint, your whole health is their whole point. Thanks to WellPoint, thanks to Ray. We'll thank some other sponsors in a little bit, but I want to start first of all, Greg. But did you notice my snazzy?
Yeah, nice City of Lowell. Very nice.
City of Lowell. I am now officially an employee of the City of Lowell.
How'd you get that? I didn't even get one of those.
So funny story. By being fat, I got this.
Okay.
So my cousin Teddy, the treasurer.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, he's. I guess there's a store where City of Lowell employees can go buy things.
Oh, didn't know.
Yeah, and he wanted a shirt. He wanted a polo shirt to wear out on the golf course when he's just hanging out there because he doesn't golf. He's smarter than the rest of us. But
Teddy doesn't play golf, but he goes to golf course?
He's a member along. I think he's a social member.
Oh, social. Okay. I get it.
I don't.
No, that's that's good.
But he wanted a shirt, so he went and ordered himself a shirt, and unfortunately he hit 2XL. Oh. So
there you go.
The shirt was too big for him.
Yeah, Teddy.
And he said he brought it to me Saturday. He said, "I think this will." Yeah. This will fit you, won't it? So I'm like, yeah, because I'm fat. I got myself a.
Don't want to say anything, but it does fit good.
It's a little snug on the sleeves. The sleeves are narrow, but it's a hell of a shirt.
That part. But the shirt line comes perfect to the shoulders.
So thank you to cousin Teddy, treasurer Teddy.
Treasurer Teddy.
And thank you for thinking of me for being fat and that I would fit into this shirt. But it does remind me that the Inside Lowell store is still open.
Yeah, you have one, right?
Till July 3rd. If you go to our website, the link to the store is there. If you go to our Facebook page, we've pinned it up at the top. But if at the top of the page, I should say. But we've got long and short sleeve T-shirts. We've got the polo shirts, and we've got the Bill Belichick hoodies as well. Inside Lowell online store. Orders accepted through July 3rd, and then we'll have to shut it down for a couple of months, and we'll come back with some new items.
New items, yeah.
Get on out there and get those shirts. And then if you have somebody who works at City Hall and orders the wrong size
There you go.
get their City of Lowell shirt.
Yeah.
Somewhere everybody that is employed by or elected in the City of Lowell is cursing the fact that I now have
Right.
this seal. It's a snazzy little seal.
Yes,
too,
it is.
Is it not?
Yeah, Lowell always had a nice, yeah. I remember when they created that, right? The handmade, yeah.
Yeah, aren't there people who want to change it now? They
Really?
Lowell anew. Yeah, I think there was a movement for that a few years back.
I'll put a UFO on it or something?
I
Or?
don't know. I don't know, maybe like a protest at the Lad Whitney Monument.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
something crazy.
That's great, yeah.
So,
2% of the population, 2%, 0.2% are going to change the thing for the rest of people.
Of course. Hey, look, they may get them the next mayor in New York elected, so don't laugh at them.
I'm actually hoping they do.
Me too. I'm rooting for it like hell.
I want them to see what it's going to be like.
Exactly. They
it's
have,
great?
yes, they have an up close look right in the center,
Yep.
the financial center of the United States, and really the cultural center of the United States too. And I was telling people over the weekend, like, because on last Friday's podcast with Leslie, I said I'm rooting for him. I want him to win because I want people to see communism up close. And you know, when my mom or even my dad's family that was in Greece, when they would visit the United States, they wouldn't say take me to Chicago or take me to California or even take me to Florida. They wanted to go see New York City. They wanted to see the Statue of Liberty, the Empire State Building, the World Trade Center. They wanted the United States, New York City symbolizes it. Ellis Island.
Yeah.
And I want everybody to now see, because they forgot, right? History repeats itself.
Oh, for
Greg.
sure.
But when you stop teaching history the right way and you teach political activism, you don't understand that, we actually have an example. These folks who don't like capitalism, and it's it's not a perfect system.
No.
But all the great inventions and everything great throughout the world's history has come through free capitalist societies, right? Whether it was the ancient Greeks, the Romans.
I mean, that goes for art, music, everything. But everything.
But if you want
inventions,
but people always tell you, well, you didn't. They're ruining Marxism. They're not implementing it perfectly. And I always say, well, show me where it's been able to be implemented perfectly, because you do have examples. The most glaring of which was East and West Germany after World War II.
Yeah.
They literally divvied the country in half, including Berlin. They divvied the city of Berlin in half. East and West Germany. One was capitalistic. One was communist. Both had a sugar daddy, right? West Germany had the United States and the Marshall Plan to rebuild it, but East Germany had the Soviet Union.
And they had to have a wall
to rebuild it.
The people loved East Germany so much that they built the wall so the people in the West wouldn't go. Oh, wait a minute, it was the other way around.
Yeah, exactly.
So the East, so they wouldn't leave to go to the West because it was so bad on the East side.
Exactly. That's
communism
all you
was
need
great.
to know. If you want to have a debate about communism versus capitalism, Marxism versus capitalism as an economic theory and model, all you have to do is look at Germany. Right. Or you could look at Cuba and the fact that people hop on rafts trying to get to Florida. They're not trying to sail from Florida to Cuba. It's going the other way. Venezuela, right? You want to believe that all these people are seeking political asylum who cross the border from Venezuela? Why? Oh, Korea, North Korea, South Korea, right? Why do you need that line of demarcation?
Well, they had that beautiful, you look across the border from that beautiful town and city set up. And then wait a minute, it's Hollywood fronted. How come they can't build a beautiful town? They got Hollywood fronted stage props to make it look like a town. It is funny, but I mean, you go to World War II. I mean, you look like I said before with Stalin, they lost 4 million people, and Russians lost 4 million people in the war against Germany. And then Stalin killed 20 million more later they thought weren't good enough. I mean, they were living off of Lenin's policy of communism. And Lenin did, he murdered his son-in-law and he raped his daughter twice. So that's a good guy to follow, definitely.
Good leaders.
Good stuff.
Elected leaders in these countries.
Definitely. Good policies.
So I'm actually rooting for Zoran Mandani to win that election, because I believe the American people need a little history lesson, and what better way to do it. And now, the fall of New York is a big price to pay, but I think it's worth it to save a nation. I think New York City should be sacrificed and allows Zoran
think
to win that race.
The first ones that will sacrifice will be the state part across the river. They're gonna go on your own.
Jersey, yeah, Jersey.
No, I mean New York State's gonna say you're on your own. I mean, it's so funny. I want this to be exposed because I want people to see what we've been saying for a lot of us been saying. This is the perfect example. The Democratic Party has been taken over. It's not us. It's not the Democratic Party anymore. And yeah, it happened, and there was no way to stop it. And people didn't want to stop it, and most people that object against it, we ended up saying, okay, this isn't worth. We just walked away. I walked away.
And I give you credit. You were the first person in 2015 to tell me that Donald Trump is going to be the next president of the United States. And I laughed. I thought it was just a fad, a couple of early polls. But when you said it to me, you explained it to me, and it played out the exact way it's going to happen. But I will take credit that in 2019, right, as the Democratic nominees were battling to try to knock out Donald Trump.
Yes.
I said AOC is not old enough yet.
Right.
But in 2028, when she is old enough, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez will be the Democratic nominee.
Yep.
I think the victory in New York shows that. That's coming, and people are still doubting me. She'll
probably beat Schumer in 2 years for U.S. Senate if he even runs against him. I guess he might not. He doesn't want to go through all that.
She'll croak him.
Yeah.
She'll croak him.
Yeah.
In New York State.
I mean, now that you know that she didn't grow up in the Bronx, she grew up in the States. She's got a base up there now. She lied about that, so she really grew up.
AOC lied?
Maybe, yeah.
No.
You know, but I say,
All right, Supreme Court. Friday issued some huge rulings, including the most important one that basically cut the legs out from under these lower level activist federal judges who would, if you wanted to fight a president, you shopped for a district, a sympathetic judge, you filed a suit, and then that judge would issue an injunction freezing the policy throughout the entire country.
Right.
And the U.S. Supreme Court on Friday, by a 6-3 ruling, said no.
It was never intended that way.
The Constitution does not allow that, and we will put an end to it. And it got heated.
Oh, yeah.
It got heated in the writing of opinions, especially when Amy Coney Barrett, Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett, ACB, literally very Supreme Court like to directly go attack at Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, KBJ. So you got ACB versus KBJ. It's like a catfight of the acronyms.
Right. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Almost. But she basically called, in no uncertain terms, called her an idiot.
Yeah.
Says she doesn't understand the Constitution and case law. Now, what's interesting is that I thought that KBJ wrote the dissenting opinion. Elena Kagan wrote that was more scholarly, more judicial. She tried to cite law, which 6 of the justices didn't agree with, but she cited law. KBJ was using like all these slogans, these signs that you were seeing at the No Kings rally.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
The 6 justices just approved the dictatorship. They paved the way for dictatorship to the point where ACB said she's decrying an executive dictatorship while cheering
supporting
a judicial
one,
dictatorship. And what was interesting was
of non-elected people.
ACB was allowed to write that. The other 5 didn't say, hey, this isn't, listen, let's keep it, let's keep it about the Constitution. Let's keep it scholarly and based in legalese. They were okay with her writing that opinion and dumping on KGB, which I thought was fascinating. Tells you they all think she's an idiot too.
That's pretty, obviously. And I thought it was interesting too with Kagan. I mean, the opinion she wrote, which is, anybody can logically write an opinion, but 2 years ago, she's on tape arguing the exact opposite. There's no way that there's no way that this could happen. She voted against the way she argued.
In 2022, shortly after her dissenting opinion emerged, a tape emerged of her in 2022 talking about the same thing. Now, Republicans did it to Joe Biden. I think they did it 24 times or 22 times. They went district shopping to try to slow his agenda.
All bad
now,
stuff.
In 2016, Trump's first term, Democrats did it 60-something times to him, and they're already at 40-something times, I think just 5 months into this term.
Right.
But the whole thing, regardless of who's doing it, look, you want to go to a district court?
Right.
You know, there's, what of them, 9 of them in the country? Or how many are there in the country?
I was going to say, I thought 16, but I could be wrong.
Whatever the numbers. I think 9, because the 9th is the one out in Seattle and Portland,
probably,
right? That's the real wacko one. But you want to go there and they want to issue a nationwide injunction? Okay.
Right.
But it's not some appointed hack from one little district, Middlesex County or...
Right. What's even better is like the judge in Boston said he's not going to follow the Supreme Court rule. He's like, "Oh, you okay?" well, I guess you're not going to be a judge much longer.
Well, so here's the thing.
Yeah.
Even if there's the fear that the judicial branch does not have the authority to enforce anything.
They just
They're dependent on the executive branch to enforce. So even if the Supreme Court says, Donald Trump, you cannot do this, and Donald Trump said, I'm going to go do it anyway, how are you going to stop him?
Right. No, I get what you're saying, but
So let this Boston judge do whatever the heck
they're just going to ignore him.
It's just going to get ignored, and there's nothing you can do.
Right.
And no future president's going to be able to now act upon it because the Supreme Court has set that precedent.
Right. That's true. Yeah.
So it was a big ruling on Friday. There was a series of rulings over the final month here that the Supreme Court ruled that basically solidified Donald Trump's agenda.
Oh no, it's all rolling that direction. Yeah.
And you want to stop it? Well, you're going to have to start in the midterms.
Yeah.
You need to stop it through elections, not through an
But look at the alternative.
Judiciary.
Look at the alternative. I mean, some people are mad, but look at the alternative. I mean, it's not good. I mean, it's just not good at all. Boston's a mess. Just go downtown Boston. It's a mess.
Were there any other rulings that jumped out to you over the last week?
I can't really say. I was just more following the Iranian thing, but I can't really say that I can think of anything in particular. Oh, the birth ruling, the birth.
Okay, so the birthright citizenship was one of the injunctions that was issued by a district judge.
Right.
And a lot of folks thought that meant that Trump could go ahead with it.
Right.
That's still to be determined legally.
Right.
That eventually is going to get to the Supreme Court too and have to be determined.
Right.
But it will be determined by the United States Supreme Court and not some guy or gal in a black robe who has very little power.
Yeah. And the thing is I mean, I remember, like I said, when we were government students at Suffolk, there was a government program. It wasn't political science. Just government. I got a degree in government, So we had to take our constitutional law class with a law professor from the law school. So I had the same constitutional law class that all the lawyers did, like Stevie and all of them. So we had the same, we're doing briefs and everything. But I still remember the birthright thing, and he made it very clear that it was for when the slaves were freed. They announced that would be there for their children because it was only fair, and only for their children and them, nobody else. So no other country had that.
Yeah. So that's interesting because I'm curious when that does get to the Supreme Court, how it will be ruled on. As you pointed out,
you're supposed to rule history first.
It was created for the children of slaves to make sure that they are American citizens and can't be deported or whatever.
Right.
But they've used it for, you're now going back, to the 1860s and whatnot. You're now going 160 some odd years of kind of like precedent where they've allowed it for all people who came to the country, immigrants, legal, illegal, and naturally the slaves who by now that's not an issue anymore. But it has carried on. You've had about 160 years of precedent. Will the Supreme Court overturn that if and when the time comes? And is that something that can be changed on a whim by the president? So let's say the next president after Donald Trump, if it's a Democrat who does can they say, okay, any child born during my term?
Yeah. It's just that the thing is I think the only country in the world does that. I mean, there's some countries like up until the unloading on Europe, France, you can be a French citizen unless you were born in France of a French citizen. the only way was you had to go join the French Foreign Legion and fight with them, and then you could get French citizenship as an outsider. Other than that, most countries don't have that. They don't have anything like that. We're the only ones that did. And we shut off immigration for a long, long time and only left it open to people from 1926, I think it was, to 64. Left it open to people who had family here. That was done for that time period. You came here and you had family here. You had to have somebody to stay with. You had to speak the language. And you had to, how was I going to say, you had to have work for yourself. You couldn't not have work. You had to have some, and if you had a child here and you stayed, that was, you were working towards American citizenship. You could do that. But we limited immigration from 1926 to 1964, big time.
So to be determined, the birthright citizenship case. I'll be curious how long it will take, because that also plays into the census. Donald Trump is also attempting to change the census and not allow illegals or those who are not citizens to be counted.
Well, they're not supposed to be anyways. That was implied.
And, that was certainly that's affecting congressional maps. It's affecting the Electoral College. This will be the upcoming battle to watch in the next couple of months. There were also a couple of rulings that the transgender activists aren't going to like. There was one about parents are allowed to opt out of certain things in the school if they don't want their kids to be subjected to it. Also, they allowed bans on some surgeries, some medical procedures on minors to also stand in the states that have instituted them. I don't think they've set a nationwide policy, but I think it was it Tennessee's ban that was upheld by the Supreme Court there in the
South Carolina too, I think. But I think they also eliminated the federal government having to pay for prisoners and stuff like that.
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, again, the whole issue of the occupied Democratic Party for the last how many years has been genderism and stuff. Nothing to do with, it's been all about sexism, genderism. And that's just going to turn more and more people. They're not interested. Go live your own life. We don't care. Live your own life. Just go do your thing. But don't force it on everybody else.
As Scott Jennings says, get on the right side of the Democrats are on the wrong side of the 80-20 issues. Yeah. And there was it was a Jake Tapper show on Sunday morning I was watching where somebody got up and said, it was a Democrat who said, it was fighting with somebody over, I think it was over the closing of the border and this stuff. And this Democrat, I think it was a congressman, said, can we get on the right side of an 80-20 issue for one? Right. So it's hysterical to hear certain Democrats now saying, hey, guys, let's go.
They've driven the public
gone too far.
Yeah, they've driven the public so far. I mean, look at the Pride Day things. Pride Day events, they ended up with, 60% less funding from companies.
That's because USA, is it a coincidence that USAID has lost a lot of its funding?
Same reason why the National Committee and the Democrats
are going bankrupt.
They've been illegally getting money from, But the point of it the whole scenario is, I mean, I sometimes wondered, to some of my friends who were involved in that stuff, I would say to them, do you guys think that you're being set up to be destroyed? It says, the first thing that you do, you take the rainbow as a symbol, when every evangelical and Christian or whatever real religious person is going to try and say, hey, God gave that to Noah to show him the whole, they're automatically connecting you with that. Did you guys know that, you're going to piss off 70% of the public? Because you're taking a symbol that's in biblical, it's heresy. It's, why would I don't think most people knew that was happening that are involved in this stuff. Now they're wondering why they're down there, like you said, 90-10 issue, maybe 95-5. I think a lot of them were set up to fail. They did a good job on their own, don't get me wrong. But, it's just crazy, I mean, it's just like, look. To get out of those issues, leave everything along the way it was, and just start, dealing with the world stuff that we got to deal with, and jobs. I mean, look at Texas Instruments. They're coming back from Mexico. $60 billion investment in Texas yesterday. All because of the tariffs.
Capping off a tremendous week, a legendary week for Donald Trump, which we're going to talk more about. We're joined by Greg Pappas here on the Inside Lowell Daily Pulse. It's Monday, June 30th, and this is the show that's keeping its finger on the pulse of Lowell and the world around it. A lot of talk about the world around it today and the country around it. First, let's thank our Daily Pulse sponsors, Ray Booten, licensed realtor in Mass and New Hampshire. Find him online, realestaterayBooten.com. Thank you as well to WellPoint. At WellPoint, your whole health is their whole point. Washington Savings Bank, banking that feels like home. Make the switch now to Washington Savings Bank. What better time to make the switch, right? The week that we celebrate the founding of our country, the independence of our country. About the father of our country, George Washington, Washington Savings Bank, named after him. Make the switch now. TMI Properties, quality and value at every price point. Find your perfect space with TMI. Mahoney Oil, providing warmth and protection to Greater Lowell and Southern New Hampshire since 1925. 100 years of serving our community. Speaking of serving the community, the Greater Lowell Community Foundation, improving the quality of life through strategic, impactful philanthropy. Francis E. Preventure Insurance, the agency Greater Lowell is counted on to protect its most valuable assets since 1982. And by the Massachusetts Pirates, they bring all the hard-hitting action and excitement of arena football to the Mill City. Pirates' 4-game winning streak snapped Saturday night in Iowa. They look to start a new one Thursday night at the Tsongas Center. Big game. Thursday, July 3rd. Pirates against... forget who they're playing. They're playing somebody. They're at home Thursday night. Let's go root them on. If you want tickets, get in touch with me. Teddy Panos at InsideLowell.com. I got a bunch of tickets to give away for folks. I'm going to be away. We're heading down to the Cape with the missus and the kids for a few days. So tomorrow will be our final daily pulse of the week before we come back Monday. I'm leaving you all with the Trigger 'em Tuesday daily pulse, by the way. But what a legendary week for Donald Trump. Has a president of the United States ever had a better 8 days than Donald Trump enjoyed last week?
The only one I can think of would be George Washington when he was building the country.
Right. Well, I mean, think about it. Right?
You look at all the. I mean, we had to study every president when we were in college. So we had to study all their programs and stuff like that. You know, everything. I mean, there's really been. You know, I mean, Roosevelt had some, things that stuck out that may not work as good now, but you really haven't had the stuff happen that has happened. I mean, President Kennedy tried to do it and they killed him. He was trying to do it, but they killed him.
But he never had a week where it all, one of the weeks was the Cuban Missile Crisis.
It was all, I mean.
He was trying to get us out of Vietnam.
No, there's nothing, I mean.
Civil rights stuff.
Just even 6 months, I mean. You look at the whole thing. I mean, it's really.
But it never all coalesced into 8 days. So we'll.
I mean, look at all the countries that signed peace treaties. Look at Africa. That war stopped in the Congo for 14 years. He got a peace treaty out of it.
So let's just kind of look at it for a second. It started with the Saturday night strike, Saturday night U.S. time, on the Iranian nuclear facilities, and there was. A back and forth about whether they were successful, they were not. CNN that's the sword CNN decided to die on, an anonymous source. That was clearly an anti-Trump leak.
I found out who the source was.
Who was it?
It was the janitor in the building but they used that. I mean, because he was. But I'm just saying, it's just ridiculous. I mean,
so not just that one issue. That would have made it a great week alone for Donald Trump because. If nothing else, you've at least stopped for 2 to 3 years the Iranian nuclear program.
And people forget. I mean, they're younger than me and stuff, and they forget what started the whole Iranian thing. It was 1979. They took over the American embassy.
Correct.
And
held our hostages. 434 days or something like that.
Held embassy people hostage, which is a no.
That's an act of war. That's a declaration of war
to the whole world.
Yes.
Embassies are no. You don't do that. Carter should have had the United Nations, and they should have forced them. Get it? You go down here, walk. The general should have walked in. The United Nations Secretary said, "We're taking them out now. If you want to be part of the rest of the world, you just violated the #1 worst thing in the world." And they didn't do it. He didn't use anything properly. He should have done that.
To me,
that's what started this whole
UN.
thing.
The UN being ineffective there was like the United States can't count on it.
Right.
We've got to go back to being.
They've overseen. I always said they've overseen so many deaths of so many people, it's unbelievable. But then again, the United Nations building was built on Rockefeller land. There was a big slaughtering house in New York City at one point. So there you go. Maybe it's haunted by all the animals that they killed on that land. Did you know that?
No, I did not.
Yeah, that land under the UN building. I was told. Yeah, I was told that by a professor who worked at the university at United Nations, and then we did look it up, and Judy was right. Yeah, it was a slaughterhouse that the Rockefellers ended up it was making all the meat for New York City. And then as things modernized a little bit, they cleaned it up and gave it's all blood soaked.
It's historical.
It's sitting on animal blood soaked land.
So in the aftermath of that,
Yeah.
The Iranians signaled a willingness to negotiate peace with the United States and with Israel.
Right.
Stunning.
Yeah.
Absolutely stunning. Also, now, one of the reasons they may be doing that is because you sent me a link this morning that the Iranian currency completely collapsed in comparison to the U.S. dollar.
900,000.
Which
900,000 of their paper things to $1 So you want to go buy a $3 thing, you need 3 million pieces of Iranian paper to buy a $3 thing in Iran.
It's basically worth
my
show notes.
Right.
Here, right?
It's back. It's like Germany was. Remember they showed you people with wheelbarrows of money to buy a loaf of bread? But CNN's not talking about that. That's critical.
So basically the Ayatollahs, Ayatollah Khamenei, not Khomeini from 1979, but Ayatollah Khamenei with this KHA instead of the KHO, is willing to talk to Donald Trump. I think he sees that as his only path to staying in office. If there was a potential uprising that Obama kind of didn't support that might have been able to overthrow them, Biden, I think, also might have dropped the ball a little.
Right.
I think the Ayatollah knows that Donald Trump won't drop the ball on this one, that if they have a chance to overthrow them through Iranians doing it within
doing
the
their own
country,
thing, and he should say
they would do it.
He should say that we're not in favor of regime change of us doing it, but I support the people doing it.
Well, he said after originally signaling that he wanted to negotiate in peace, he did kind of say over the weekend, "I'm not talking to them."
Yeah,
maybe he knows what's coming. I don't know.
He probably does. You know, I mean, and the whole thing with, I remember it was personal for some of us because at Suffolk, we're 1979, we had one more year left, less than a year to finish school. And two of our closest friends, these two beautiful, real good friends of ours, young ladies from Iran, we're learning government here and they're going to go back to Iran. They had to go home because they were going to murder their families. So we never saw them. I don't even know if they're still alive, you know. They had to leave us before they graduated, and it was like a big, sad thing. So it personally touched a lot of people, what was going on, and they knew what was going to happen. But it's just crazy, yeah.
It sure was.
And then I'm sorry, one more thing. I just say that the bombing of the plant there, I mean, if you had no explosives on a 30,000-pound thing, now those bombers are dropping them from 70,000 feet. They're not dropping them from 30,000 feet or 20,000, 70. You just drop a 30,000-pound thing from that. It's going to put it's going to put a hole in the ground that's like inexplicable what the hole would be like. I mean, a 2,000-pound bomb from a B-52 makes a 40-foot crater. What do you think a 30,000-pound makes? Wow. A 40-foot crater and a 2,000-pound bomb. What's a 30,000 bomb crater going to look like when it's, what do you think one does under that? It's probably, you take that whole plant, just one of them has a 1/4 mile crater underneath of it, just from one bomb. They're so full of crap about, you know, so, the thing's gone.
Now, was it a mistake, or was it like, you know, kind of burning away American money? We talked about the Iranian currency, but I mean, how many billions did Barack Obama and Joe Biden give the Iranians? And then we went and we bombed all their buildings and their nuclear facilities that they built with American dollars. Isn't that kind of a waste of American taxpayer dollars?
Right, and it even costs more money because he sent them cash, which means you have to reprint new money. Sometimes it costs more money to print the money than to. If you would have just sent them a check, it would have been a different story. But even more money.
Yeah, why would he need to send pallets of cash?
What was that for? Yeah, I wonder.
I don't know.
I mean. That's why I love the internet and I love the websites and all this stuff because the American people know what's going on now.
They do.
And all the time they thought they were dumb. Now they starting to realize people in the lower America were not stupid.
So Donald Trump blew up every building that Barack Obama and Joe Biden helped build in Iran, including their nuclear program. Which, by the way, here was the other thing that, remember there was a debate about whether they were using it for energy. They were enriching uranium for energy versus whether they were doing it to create weaponry.
Right.
Nobody is disagreeing with the fact that they had reached 60% enriched uranium.
Yeah, even
which you don't need for you don't need it for energy. So there's no doubt anymore that they were creating a weapon.
Right.
We've lost that fake talking point that was out there in the world. Even the Iranians aren't disputing that anymore. So that would have made it one of the best weeks in presidential history. Had that been the only thing, but no. You mentioned peace deals, Congo, and I forget.
Yeah,
what
the
other
Congo in a
country was.
war with I don't know if it's Chad or something like almost 30 years.
Yeah, and they were in the White House, announcing a peace deal.
Yeah.
What's comical is later that night, or maybe the next day on CNN, there's some Democratic activist with a press pass, debating their panel with that included the best guy on the planet, Scott Jennings. And she was denying that they made a press deal. She's like, Trump gets out ahead of these peace announcements and he announces things that aren't just done. I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but there's no peace deal. And Scott Jennings is like, didn't you see the news the other day? They were in the White House, he said. And naturally, if you go to Twitter, you see the clip of the head of Congo, the president, prime minister, whatever his title is, saying, thank you, Mr. President, for brokering this peace deal. And then they signed a peace deal, while CNN propagandists are telling you, no, there is no.
It's crazy. And it's just, I mean, they just lie. Do you remember the building that had the hole in this? It was probably about 20 stories high, 25 stories high, and it looked like just like a missile went into one apartment. And that's what they did. They targeted the general in there, and they killed the general. I had a relative. I'm not going to say. Well, it's a cousin, but it's like a second, whatever. Her husband was spent some time with us this past week in Drake for a family thing, and he did work. You're
talking about the killing of General Soleimani?
Yeah, in that building.
Yeah.
And he worked, my cousin's husband worked, just retired 2 years ago from the CIA. 37.
Another CIA connect. See, I'm telling you.
37 years but he just happened to say when I showed him the picture, he goes, oh, that's the building in Iran that he says, that knocked out the elevator and everything, right? That's one of the buildings they used to throw gay people and transgender people off. They buy them a nice meal when they discovered they were, dress them all up in white and then throw them off the building. He goes, now they can't use the building anymore. He knew that. That's what they do in Iran.
Okay.
Yeah. So you have a pride parade in Iran, you're dead. But,
Tell that to the lefties.
Well, they know it. They know it. They saw it at City Hall. They tried to get friendly with the ones saying one of them almost beat the hell out of the Palestinian guy, almost beat the hell out of one another. I was crazy. Get away from us. We don't want your help. I mean, they don't get it, But that was the building. He says that's one of the ones that they used to use.
So speaking of the Palestinians, there were some indications last week as well that Egypt and Saudi Arabia are going to try to rebuild Gaza, and they were going to step in and kind of run that area.
It's a good idea.
Countries that have made peace with Israel. And there's talk that other Middle Eastern countries are going to make peace with Israel. Now, I don't think we got any new peace treaties last week, but the openness of an Arab world that has been fighting the creation of an Israeli state since 1948, to now at least be willing to acknowledge their right to an existence, and in return, we'll kind of try to take care of this Hamas problem for you, but we'll rebuild and we'll fix.
That money won't go to underground tunnels and stuff like that.
Now,
plus Hamas is in a fight this week because you saw the Palestinian thing. They killed a kid in the clan. The kid's got 800 friggin' relatives, and all of them have AK-47s. So now the Palestinians are pissed off at the Hamas.
The origins of this, everybody laughed when then newly re-inaugurated Donald Trump said, I'm going to have the United States rebuild Gaza. And we'll turn it into a beautiful resort. And everyone like, what is he doing? He's going to put American soldiers and contractors in harm's way? No. He realized there is no way on God's green earth the Arab countries want Americans walking around their holy lands and their sacred lands. So they're like, we'll do it. Thank you. So he got them to act.
Yeah, exactly. That's how
give him credit for that.
He drew them in.
I'm going to give him credit for that.
That peace thing is going to happen. I can guarantee you it's going to happen, and it's going to last for a while. And then may fall apart, but that's going to be later down the line.
Listen, Egypt and Israel have lived in peace since 1979.
Well, they have
for the most part, right?
Yeah. And they gave them back the Sinai that they took over.
There's we had 4 wars from 48 to 73, right? 4 wars in 25 years. Arab-Israeli wars, mostly led by Egypt. And since 1979, they've lived in peace. And Jordan has, other countries are starting to do it. So it is possible, and the Israeli government has shown that they can live in peace with people who are willing to reciprocate that and not try to drive them to the sea. So another great week for Donald Trump. And then you cap off that 7-8 day period with the Senate.
Oh,
by a
yeah, 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 yeah.
51-49
yeah.
vote.
Yeah.
Doing a procedural vote to advance his budget.
Right.
Started the debate. Well, first it started with an attempted filibuster by
Right.
Chuck Schumer,
Yeah.
who decided to have the clerks of the U.S. Senate read the entire 940-page bill.
Instead of him himself.
12 hours. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Interesting you said
Yeah,
that. Instead of him himself, because he's too lazy.
Feeble.
Feeble might be a good word,
Yeah.
to stand there and do it himself.
Yeah.
Now, Cory Booker, as much as I thought was
Stood there and
silly,
read it, yeah.
he stood there and filibustered. He
Right.
broke the record for the longest filibuster
Right.
and did it by himself.
Yeah.
He believed in what he
Right.
was doing so much. Thoroughly disagree with him,
Yeah.
but he believed in it so much that he stood there and read it himself.
Right.
Chuck Schumer,
Right.
this elitist Democratic
Right.
senator,
Right.
the senator from Palestine, as Donald Trump dubbed him
Yeah,
last
yeah,
week,
yeah.
had made these poor, probably the lowest paid people in that
Right.
building,
Right.
clerks,
Right.
have to read that bill,
Yeah,
which we're
they-
told took, what, 12 hours or so?
I was surprised. They get through that in 12 hours. That's pretty good. 900 pages.
Yeah.
God bless them, yeah.
So now the clock then
Yeah.
starts on what, about 20 hours of allowable debate?
Yes.
Okay.
And they also re-put in back a lot of stuff that they took out.
Correct.
The parliamentarian took
They
out.
put in they overrode the parliamentarian
Right.
and put in the
Right.
no Medicaid for illegal immigrants.
Right, which is the ones that Congressman was talking about. There's a lot of people that are going to die if they don't get Medicaid. Yeah, but they're illegal, and we're paying for it.
Right. You know, at some point
she just needs to say that. and,
Right. If you frame the discussion as you're cutting 14 million
Yeah.
people off Medicaid,
Right.
it's easy to say, no, don't do it. That's
Right.
cool.
And
if
I
you
think-
say we're going to cut off illegals from it,
Yeah.
suddenly I think
People
it becomes
understand.
a popular
Yeah,
decision.
Exactly.
But
And then Schumer, I just not to make anything up, but I think Schumer, he keeps looking at his watch. And I was talking to a friend of mine who works for U.S. Senate. He says, that's not a watch, it's a GPS location thing. He doesn't want to stand in the same location of anywhere at any long time period of time.
are you serious?
Yes. I says, what do you mean? He's, well, something might come down.
So
No, I'm just kidding with that.
but
But he does keep doing that. I don't know why.
so putting that Medicaid thing back in.
Yeah.
Does that mean that the opposition in the House now kind of you peel away a couple of opposition votes?
yeah.
There were some Republicans in the House
Yeah,
that had signaled
yeah.
we don't like what the Senate did to
Right.
this. Was
Yeah.
that concession by the Senate?
Oh, yeah.
Was that enough to get the House to now pass it? Because the vote will be at some point tonight.
Yeah, but it wasn't just
Right?
it wasn't just that. It was a couple other things too. I think they took out the tips tax. Why would you take that out? It's for people who
So
work.
now that's back.
That's back end. Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's crazy.
So in this budget,
Yeah.
there's tips up to $15,000,
Yep.
I believe is the number. I don't know if that changed, but that was what was being discussed a month or
Right.
so ago. So the first 15,000 of tips
Right.
that the billionaires make, because this is a tax that benefits billionaires,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The first 15,000 is now tax exempt.
Right.
Social Security taxes are now tax exempt.
exempt.
So the tax money that was taken out of your paycheck
Right.
and put into Social Security and then distributed to all sorts of people who didn't contribute
Right.
taxes
Exactly.
was now getting taxed when you received that check every month
Exactly.
from the
Right.
United States
Kind of
government.
like your electric bill. Half of your bill is for stuff you don't use, like electric cars, electric this, electric that.
Yeah, you're subsidizing Elon
Which is
Musk
funny
with your
also.
electric
Speaking of
bill.
electric, you saw one of those big windmills fell over on a highway in Maryland today. Shut down the whole.
But another great week. For
Shut
Trump.
down the whole highway. But anyways, yeah.
But Social Security is
Yeah.
now not going to be taxable, I believe, up to $200,000.
Right.
Again, so the billionaires are getting a big tax break there,
Yeah,
right? Is
yeah,
that
yeah.
because I'm told this is only all these that we're kicking people off Medicaid to
Yes,
give billionaires
that is,
tax breaks.
Yeah, that's what this. Yeah, this.
That's the Democratic.
That's what they say,
talking
but
point, right?
again, it's not Democrats anymore. But there are some that still are Democrats. I shouldn't say that haven't figured out yet that we've been infiltrated, like a lot of our people in Massachusetts. There's a lot of our elected officials.
So it appears
some friends of mine.
this will pass the Senate tonight. I believe the
Yeah.
vote will be tonight,
Yep.
and then go into the House.
Yeah.
And then again, there's parliamentarian procedures
Yeah.
and stuff. But it will take probably a couple of days. But
Yeah.
Donald Trump had said, I want this on my desk by July 4th.
Yeah, they're probably.
sign
Yeah,
it.
that's this week.
A
Yeah.
big Independence Day victory for him.
Right.
That he's this close to getting right
And those
now.
guys, believe me, don't want to be there this week. They want to go home for another 4 or 5 weeks. They don't want to be there at all. There's nothing in Washington for them.
So now
They want to be back home.
I understand there's many of you out there that don't want to see this happen. But
And then I ask them why.
Well,
Nobody works in your family that begs tips.
they don't want the service.
You don't want them. You don't want taxes off your Social Security, or wait a minute, you don't want you want illegal people here living off of you, and your kids still have to work, and you have to work.
I'm going to summarize it for you, Greg.
Yep.
What they don't want is something positive for Donald Trump.
That's too. Yeah.
And he joked about I could cure cancer, and they'll never give me credit.
Well,
that is now being proven true.
Yeah.
They just don't want him to have.
Well, there
a
are going to
victory.
be people like that. I mean, even Jesus said when he comes back that they're going to stand right in front and say, "I don't want you." And they go, "Okay, see you later. I don't know you either." We'll see who's the big loser on that one.
But Donald Trump's going to get his victory.
Yeah.
Again,
and the American public will. Yeah.
All right. And then before we end the legendary week for Donald Trump, there's stuff happening behind the scenes that people aren't yet aware of. It might blow up in a big way tomorrow, but you're aware of it. We've discussed it. Asa Stutz, who I had on last week, has told me 30 days ago that there are big changes coming in China.
Yeah. And we talked about it the last time.
We did.
A month ago, yeah.
And he told us that Xi, was it a president or a premier, whatever the title is up there? Yeah. He's the chief dictator that the military props up in China, because that's a military dictatorship. Right. But his girlfriend was let go from the government about a month or so ago.
There you go.
And Asa Stutz said to me, I think he's about to go. Yep. I think this is the first. Subsequently, they've cleaned out some generals that are that are like his
guys that he appointed, an admiral last week.
And this morning, Asa Stutz sent us.
And one more thing, he said he announced 2 days ago that he wasn't going to the BRICS thing.
Oh yes,
which is a big.
Yep.
That's a month away.
That was supposed to be the alternative to the United States currency.
But to not go, why? Why aren't you going? Because you're not going to be in charge. That's why.
So Asa.
And now, why did all this happen? Do you think? The tariffs.
Stuff?
Wow.
The tariffs, which didn't increase inflation and have brought a ton of American industry back, which will create good-paying jobs for people that can then be taxed to make the.
I mean, everything about China and stuff like that, they've been telling everybody for years. I think a lot of it's been about lies, been lying about everything. I mean, you could see through history that they are terrible soldiers, or they don't want to fight for their country because they got nothing to fight for. I mean, they make a big deal. Oh, they got two nuclear carriers now. 2 carriers. We got 14. Ours get certified every 6 months. The guys qualify. They still haven't qualified them. They can't qualify them. They can't get the planes to land right. They're still not qualified carriers. In other words, certainly be good in battle. You know. They've been telling us since we were kids, 1.2 billion people live in China. Now the Russians are saying, no, it's only 500 million.
They've started tearing down whole cities of skyscrapers that they built because there's nobody living in them.
And the thing I always say is, how can you, it's only on the East Coast. The inner part of China is unlivable. It's all desert and everything. How do you have 1.2 billion people live? I was been a stupid kid listening to this. There are 1.2 billion people living on the East Coast. You imagine that in the United States? I mean, it's a little longer, a little bigger, but there's something a lot about it. It's not. I think they knew that all along. That's why they're all about infiltration rather than they are about military. They would have, look, if they didn't take over Taiwan when Biden was in office, they're never going to take it over because they can't.
So
Japan would kick their ass.
So the big news this morning, and again, we call it the Stutz Network, but Asa Stutz told me there is a huge announcement scheduled to come out of China tomorrow. I don't know how he gets this info, but he hasn't been wrong. He told me all this stuff months ago. So supposedly there's a big announcement coming tomorrow out of China, and that announcement, according to Asa Stutz, our foreign policy expert here at InsideLowell, is that they found a graceful exit for Xi. He's not being overthrown, deposed, but after all these years of service to China and the Chinese people, he's now decided he needs to retire, move on, and live his life, whatever. But it's a graceful exit. So what comes next?
It's all about honor and stuff like that.
What comes next in China? Is China as the geopolitical Marxist threat to the United States? Are we watching that start to change, Greg Pappas?
I don't know. That's interesting because I don't think they have the military. They don't have the military to do the stuff that they say. I mean, they have nuclear weapons. It's just like Russia doesn't have the military, but they have nuclear weapons. But they're not going to. You got to think how they think differently than we do. And there's there's, like they said, honor is a big thing and all this other stuff. I just don't see, I don't know. I just don't see them being world beaters after this is over. You're either going to have a real radical group take over that's going to get the rest of the world on them economically, because economics is the new war now. And they're in big trouble economically. So, or you're going to have the other way around. They're going to actually sit back and be quiet for a little while and just try to take care of the population. It's really diminished.
So that's the question, right?
Yeah.
What comes after Xi? There is potentially, you said, it's a more radical general, right? That Lord knows, whenever the Americans, the American government has been involved in regime change, we always pick the person who's crazier than the lunatic we're trying to get out.
Yeah, exactly.
But there are signs that point to, as you said, their population may have been overblown.
Way overblown.
Their population is starving.
Starving.
Their economy, which was deemed as a threat to the American economy, it was just a facade. And Trump's tariffs may have exposed that by bringing development and industry back to America. Now, there were steps taken that would ban. If you notice, Donald Trump put something in a month or so ago that would ban Chinese students from coming to American colleges, which quickly, as part of the trade deal, the tariff deal that China agreed to, they were then allowed to come back in. I found that fascinating because what many of the Chinese students are doing, and all you have to do is Google Chinese student espionage Michigan. In the last month, they've been stealing American technology from the colleges, including sensitive military and defense research, and taking it back to China.
And same thing happened when the COVID started down here in Boston, which it started in Boston, because UMass Boston has almost 50% of the Chinese students. Marty will tell you that. They're from China. They're right behind the archives where Galvin has, we have the building. I was down there for, you'd see it. But and then that whole thing happened. All of a sudden, two professors at Harvard and one at BU end up taken off. They arrested those two. One got away, but those two, I've never heard anything more about them with biological technology that they were trying to get back to China. The one at BU did get away. She went up to Canada and got out that way. She's a bioethicist, but she was also a captain in the Chinese army. What's a captain in the Chinese army doing? Of course, they didn't find that out till later, right? A captain in the Chinese army is working at Boston University in the biolab.
So we'll see what that announcement is tomorrow out of China, but what we know for sure is that the strikes against Iran have very much hampered their nuclear ability
and their economic,
and have at least started the thought process that there may finally be peace between Iran, Israel, and the United States, and an even broader peace between Israel and its Arab neighbors.
If you get the princes going back there, the Shah's nephew or son or whatever, he's already calling for call me and I don't want to be I just want to start a parliamentary form of government. He's going back there, and if the money's, you need a wheelbarrow to carry around money now to buy stuff, it's going to change.
So a half to 3/4 of a century of conflict in the Middle East, it's not over.
No.
But there's more positivity now than that. You've got peace deals being made in Africa, potentially in Gaza. You've got, again, for some of you, this is not good, but Donald Trump's budget and a new potentially ushering in an era of new American economic dominance and prosperity. Again, I'm willing to say it could fail. We won't know for sure. I think he's on the right track.
Well, he just got, 6 million people off of Social Security that weren't alive still?
How many voters is he
getting
off the rolls?
But how many? They were still getting checks. Once a congresswoman, her grandmother died. Once an American congresswoman died 20 years ago. Oh, we called them, but they kept cashing a check. I'm waiting for her to get charged.
That's fraud.
Yeah.
And potentially something brewing in China.
Yeah. All kinds of stuff.
What a week. What a week.
Oh, crazy. Yeah. Crazy. It just makes you wonder what next week's going to bring.
I think it needs to bring some protests. I think we need to get the protesters back at the Lad Whitney Monument, and
that was
because it's been
I can't believe they're out
too
there.
many victories for Donald Trump. The Supreme Court rulings to boot.
Right. Even after what's his name told her there's bodies buried there, they didn't care. See, that's what kind of people they are. It's them. I always say people like that, and then scientists, they have no country. They'll work with anybody, but it's about science. It's not about the country you're going from. Who's paying for your research? Oh.
I don't need a Trigger 'em Tuesday show. I can just rerun this one.
Yeah, that's all.
I'll do Trigger 'em Tuesday on
No,
local
I think there you go.
because we got a city council meeting tonight that we're going to talk an awful lot about.
Yeah.
But hey, Greg Pappas, always good to have you in
fun.
here.
Yeah,
Now, what I have to do is I have to bring you and Asa and Marty Laurie got you guys on the radio.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah, Ace is a good kid. He's sharp.
He's very.
Joey Espinola, another one. I mean,
and he uses Twitter. He goes into these like the Russia-Ukraine war. He was giving us things.
Well,
Even COVID, he was giving us data.
Right.
China now.
Yeah.
It's like holy smokes. And the stuff he says, it comes.
Oh yeah, and there's a lot. I mean, I got some of the guys that gave him the Twitter things that are former CIA people, intelligence people who were good people, who were sending stuff back that were, I mean, even the night that Iran was getting bombed, I called Stevie Panja. I said, Stevie, we're bombing Iran. It was 2 hours before the news came out with it, but it was a Twitter thing, was former CIA guys that got the info first. Yeah. It's very, you know what, Asa knows too, he's smart.
That's why they don't like Musk. That's the real reason they don't like Musk. He's allowed information.
Oh, wait a minute. He's not elected doing all that stuff. You know how many people aren't elected to do stuff for presidents and for governors? I did my whole life. I'm not elected. I worked for Galvin. I did more stuff than Galvin even knew. That's the stupidest argument in the world, you know? That's a guy.
When you don't have the truth on your side, you sometimes have to.
Well, that's the whole thing. And, you know, but if you want to play that game, good luck to you, because we know who the truth is.
Greg Pappas.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure. Happy 4th of July to you. Happy Independence Day. I hope you celebrate and get to enjoy the holiday with your loved ones.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Thank you to Greg. Thank you for tuning in here to the Daily Pulse, the Monday, June 30th edition. As I mentioned, I'll be back tomorrow. One more Daily Pulse before I take a few days off. The kids and the wife and I are going to head for a little beach and swimming pool time, but we will be back on Monday. But still got to deal with me one more day tomorrow. A Trigger 'em Tuesday, recapping tonight's city council meeting and some other local issues here. It's the Daily Pulse, keeping its finger on the pulse of Lowell and the world around it. Till next time, everybody stay safe, stay cool out there today, gang, and we'll catch you on the other side.
Okay.